man, and things are looking pretty crazy at the border. And Trump just got in office. There's a lot of stuff going on with things he enacted with prison and GENDERs, things of that nature. Um, the LA fire aftermaths, like all kinds of stuff going on. But when it comes to this whole immigration thing, man, started seeing a lot of reports of wild ish going down at the border involving cartels, man. This is pretty wild. Let's check it out, man. Mexican cartels have started planting explosives along the border in preparation for an all out war. And for those that speak Spanish, check this out. Pues amarrados los perros, pinche 20. A ver si muy verga te topas con nosotros. Ahí tengo desamarrados los perros, culero. Y así voy a andar patrullando. Con tu puta madre. Probablemente, hijo de tu puta madre. Bríncale a la verga. Bríncale al toro, perro. A ver, madre. No te pegas a la verga, culero. Gente inocente, sí, eres bien verga. You recently. A ver si muy verga. And you see it says footage shows members of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel CGNG in Mexico. CJNG, apologies, is heavily militarized and more violent than other criminal organizations. The cartel has a special operations group for these specific types of warfare. I don't know what they were really saying there. If you do, jump in the comments. But check this out too. You see Mexico flags everywhere protesting ICE immigration raids and deportations. They all chant in Spanish, "We are not going anywhere." Have we allowed illegals to become too emboldened that they literally chant, "They'll keep breaking our laws"? To police officers. So it's pretty wild scene, man. Just a lot going on at the border, period. Illegals are currently flying foreign flags and blocking traffic in Dallas to eliminate ICE and deportations. How nice of them to tell ICE where they're from. It's making it easier for them and the U.S. tax dollar. So it's just a lot going on, man. White House official Stephen Miller confirms admin's goal of finding all the 325 missing kids and prosecuting guilty Democrat officials. This is horrendous. Yeah, this is what we're talking about right here. Cartels plant explosives across the border from Brownsville, prompting urgent warning. So it's just a whole lot going on here. Texas DPS drone captures cartel operatives throwing explosives south of Fronton, Texas. The Mexican drug cartels remain the cause of ongoing gun battles in Los Guerrera, Mexico, as the battle over lucrative smuggling routes intensifies. This has a direct impact on border operations and safety of residents. So what do we got here? This is a drone catching footage of cartel operatives throwing explosives. Oh yeah, check that out. That's pretty wild, man. It's a whole lot going down at the border. People don't understand how right Trump is to send troops to the border. These photos are not of the Mexican military. These are members of cartels. They have drones and rockets. Pretty wild, man. Like literally sounds like war. Who justified Trump's pardon? Yeah, it's wild, man. I just wanted to. You have to admit at this point we are all fighting evil force, so it's evil itself. According to Tucker Carlson, there are evil spiritual entities in this world. We are dealing with demons.
Evidence, I think. It's my personal belief, based on a fair amount of evidence, that they're not aliens. They've always been here. And I do think it's spiritual. That's my view. So, and again, it's not provable, but based on the evidence, I think. Absolutely. If the U.S. government has in fact had direct contact with these beings, whatever they are, I've already told you what I think they are, and has entered into some sort of agreement with them, which is the claim of informed people, I would say. Whether they're right or wrong, I can't say conclusively. But if that is true, I mean, it's a very, very, very heavy thing. Yeah. A lot of people say interdimensional beings. I want to ask, are angels and demons, or how would you describe these beings? You know, these are, again, I'm getting into the realm of conjecture, so I just want to say that flat out. Entity. But one thing I know for a dead certain fact, having seen it, is that there is good and evil. We're being acted upon at all times. And I think every person can feel that in himself. I mean, there are moments when you are moved to do things that are much better than you actually are, and they're also more evil and destructive than you actually are. You are subject to forces from outside yourself. That is absolutely true. Now, we can argue about what they are, but every person in the room, if he's reflective, will tell you, yes, I know what you're talking about. And so there are forces that are not human, that do exist in a spiritual realm of some kind, that we cannot see, and that when you think about it, sort of make you think we live in an ant farm. Yeah. Right? And that's just, that is real. Yeah. Okay. And there's many. It's my personal belief based on.
So yeah, man, just a lot going on at the border, man. Wanted to show this. I'm gonna run this one more video about these explosives, man. It's pretty wild stuff, man. Comment, everyone. Let me know what you think. Subscribe. Stay tuned for updates if you're new. Here we go right here. This is what we're talking about here. Expand article. Cartels, explosives. We uncover dangers of cartel activity in Mexico, including the use of explosives impacting American businesses. So, like, I didn't know it was going down like that, but I remember hearing stuff for a few years. Like, this wasn't something that I was following heavily.
Explosives found again just across the border in the Mexican state of Tamaulipas.
I never in a million years really thought that we would be seeing that so close to home.
Why should we care?
People thinking, well, I'm just commuting to work. I'm just commuting to see my family. And now I have to worry about terrorist-like devices.
And how will the president's executive order making cartels foreign terrorist organizations affect us? And why does the cartel's activity south of the border affect our everyday lives?
It would affect everything if we stop trade with Mexico.
Thanks for joining us again for another edition of Immigration Crisis, the fight for the southern border. I'm Jamie Virgen from Sinclair Broadcasting in San Antonio, Texas, and we're going to go straight to the news that broke this weekend, just across the border from the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. Explosives being placed by cartels on Mexican roads that are used for a lot of business. A lot of American businesses have brick and mortar stores and factories in the state of Tamaulipas. Our Jordan Elder has the report.
Don't touch, don't move.
This is pretty crazy stuff here. We getting some buffering.
And it is, I can't tell you how many people go back and forth every single day to work. And I can't imagine how scary this must be to see these reports, because we had one in December too, where a shootout led to 10 IEDs being found on the Mexican side. And it's really scary to people thinking, well, I'm just commuting to work. I'm just commuting to see my family. And now I have to worry about terrorist-like devices. I mean, this is the stuff that we were seeing in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we've dealt with in a war zone. But no one thinks of our Mexican border, people who are from there, we don't think of our Mexican border as a war zone, and we don't want to.
I think a lot of people, and you hit it on the nose, a lot of people don't realize the amount of business, import-export that is done between the U.S.
So on the business side of things, comment everyone, if you realize that trade is that heavy and everything like that. I didn't know, like I said, a couple years ago, I remember talking with a few people, that I know that go to Mexico pretty regularly, and, they were just talking about a lot of the wild ish that was going down over there, and I don't know, like, this is scary-ish, man.
We do business on both sides of the border. We're very dependent on each other for our commerce, for our business, for our livelihood. Our families live across the way. I grew up in El Paso on the border, and it is, I can't tell you how many people go back and forth every single day to work. And I can't imagine how scary this must be to see these reports, because we had one in December too, where a shootout led to 10 IEDs being found on the Mexican side. And it's really scary to people thinking, well, I'm just commuting to work. I'm just commuting to see my family. And now I have to worry about terrorist-like devices. I mean, this is the stuff that we were seeing in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we've dealt with in a war zone. But no one thinks of our Mexican border, people who are from there, we don't think of our Mexican border as a war zone, and we don't want to.
I think a lot of people, and you hit it on the nose, a lot of people don't realize the amount of business, import-export that is done between the U.S. and Mexico. There are a lot of companies that specialize in doing security even from here. For example, for HEBs, for the Walmarts in Tamaulipas. How difficult is it to keep things safe in another country especially one right now that the president just signed an executive order naming the cartels FTOs.
So I don't know how much it's going to change the cartel activity, recognizing them for what they are, which is terrorists. You know, they have terrorized communities and businesses for a very long time. It has seemed to have escalated. The cartels that I grew up with in El Paso headlines had very defined rules. They didn't target women and children. There were certain businesses they left alone because they realized commerce is the backbone of both of our communities.
I remember a couple years ago when that stuff was going on where some Americans got hemmed up. You guys remember that? They went over there, crossed through into Mexico through Texas, and were said to be going to get plastic surgery done on the low, on the cheap. It got kidnapped, and there was a lot of people speculating that whole story was bullshit, that they were really up to no good. But I remember seeing some shit like that. Whatever cartel it was turned the people over, you know, that they weren't supposed to fuck with Americans. But I don't know. Now you're hearing this stuff about explosives. Like, I don't know. Are Americans safe? Like, this shit is just crazy to me, man.
We depend very heavily on the produce that's coming from Mexico, for example. The United States, our grocery bills are already extremely high, but can you imagine now with the additional security costs or the fact that these trucks are getting hijacked or blown up, something like that starts to happen on a regular basis, all the costs will rise in doing business in Mexico, which will affect our purchasing in the United States. No matter how much we're trying to curb inflation, this is only going to increase the cost of our produce, for example. But all of our goods and services coming across. But we should never have to worry about the safety of our family members or our businesses and our products going back and forth across the bridge. I mean, we have such a huge law enforcement presence, both on the Mexican side and the U.S. side. And it's just scary to think that you know, these are wars and things that we thought happened in the barrio, and they didn't happen at the bridge. They didn't happen in places where we're commuting. And now it's something that we really need to be concerned about. But Trump naming them a terrorist organization, I'm not sure that it changes their behaviors anymore. But it is definitely time for them to see that the United States is not going to allow it to continue business as usual, and that we're going to take this seriously. We have launched our military down back on the border. It's something we haven't done in 4+ years. Our military has been removed from many of the border operations over this last administration. So day one, hour one, they're saying Trump is very serious in the fact that he's putting people down there and won't hesitate to do something about an attack that he sees on the United States.
How important is it to keep the companies that are over there doing business, the U.S. companies that are over there, the businessmen that go over, I've gone with a few of them into Juarez when they're doing business just to see what they do. If they can't go into Mexico, specifically in the border states, and feel safe, how will that affect what they do? And even if they set up maquiladoras, the fabrics on the other side to give work to Mexicans.
So the maquilas are a very big part of our border communities and our businesses and our way of life, both on the U.S. and on the Mexican side. And if you can't feel safe, businesses are going to have to make a business decision and decide whether or not Mexico is the right place for them to do business anymore. And that becomes a big danger, because now you're talking about serious unemployment on both sides of the border. It isn't just the impact on prices, but the companies saying, hey, you know what, if we can't operate safely here, if our executives can't go back and forth, we're just going to have to go to Malaysia. I mean, it starts pushing our businesses back into other countries instead of bringing it closer to home, which I do know was one of President Trump's goals, was to continue to grow manufacturing back into the United States. But we can't do that without the partnership from Mexico. We always had a great partnership in that. But we saw that as prices went down, as security got bad, companies started to leave the border communities and they started to go to China. They started to go to Malaysia to set up shop over there.
The images that I sent you that were sent out by the government of the state of Tamaulipas, it says, don't touch, don't move, and don't handle it. What are those images there on that warning that went out to everybody?
Those are warnings on, just like we used to have in Afghanistan, of stay on your path and don't pick up things that you don't know what the heck they are, because they could be an incendiary device. It could be a bomb. It could be all. You just don't know what it is, and it's a shame that those are images I thought I left behind in the combat zone in Iraq and Afghanistan, and now here we are seeing mine signs. I never in a million years really thought that we would be seeing that so close to home. It is a shame.
The president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, said this week in a speech about 5 days ago when President Trump was sworn in, when he signed the FTO, she particularly and specifically said, we are a separate country. We will defend our sovereignty, and the U.S. needs to take care of their business, basically, on their side. We will take care of our business, and we need to communicate. I think a lot of people don't understand what that FTO also means. It allows certain things to be done by the United States, right?
Yes, when you designate a certain group as a terrorist organization, it does give us other authorities and powers to go after it. It is recognized by the rest of the world as, hey, it might be happening in your country, but if they are doing things to target our citizens and target our safety, we also have a right to respond. And nobody likes that because, it puts us in kind of a combat.
That shit is crazy. Where did this video go? I don't know, man, but I just wanted to tap into this and just see what everyone thinks about this, man. Our military must dominate Mexico now. We have no choice. Sending them back and putting up a wall is nothing but a Band-Aid on the Hoover Dam. We need to take control and put up another wall on the bottom. I don't know, man. That once this time to send in the military, if the Mexican government allows this to continue, they are either siding with the cartels or admitting to the world they are powerless against them. U.S. troops will make short work of these criminals. I wonder if, we'll ever see something like that, where the military will straight up, what's this right here? Will straight up go to war, essentially, with these cartels, man. But I don't know, man. I am impressed. These cartels defeated Mexican army. Now they're looking for 82nd Airborne. Popcorn is ready. Love to see our boys in action. What the fuck? But I don't know, man. Just wanted to cover this, see what everyone thinks about it. Jump in the comments. Stay tuned for updates. It's Coffee. I'm up out of here, y'all. Peace.